Last week, President Obama signed into law the Jobs Act. The Jumpstart Our Business Startups Act is a bill designed to make it easier for startups and small businesses to raise capital. The bill specifically clears the way for crowdfunding, which will allow startups to solicit the general public for investment. And the Obama administration hopes the law will give the economy a boost at a time when it desperately needs one. So at this time, we're going to bring in Michael McGeary from venture capital firm Hattery Labs, who worked directly on the bill. Thanks for joining us today, Michael.
Thanks, Abby. Great to be with you.
Great. Well, first and foremost, what benefits will this law bring to startups and small businesses?
I think there's a range of benefits. I mean, you mentioned crowdfunding in the opening, and I think that that's the number one way that people can get direct benefit from this as it rolls out. It's going to make it available for people from all over the country to give what they can to a startup they believe in and get equity in return, which will help on both sides. You could be investing in the next, say, Instagram, for example, as we saw yesterday, or you as a company could be positioning yourself with a wide range of investors that you'll help directly benefit as your company grows. And then on the back end, there's other things like the on-ramp to initial public offerings and some of the other financial regulatory loosening that came out of this that will still protect consumers first and foremost, but it'll make it easier from a regulatory hurdle for companies to go public and continue to grow and do it faster. So there's a lot that's in here that I think is really beneficial for a lot of companies.
Well, I understand that you work directly with this bill. So what can you tell us about your role in this process?
Well, our role was actually fairly easy to take on because this was a no-brainer for our community. I worked directly with people at the Office of Science and Technology Policy that help with them, bouncing ideas off and helping get our community behind this bill and things like that. But looking to people like Naval Ravikant at the Angel List, for example, or Steve Case with Startup America Partnership, it was great to see people from our community getting really involved on these issues in a positive, forward-thinking way, which working in the startup and venture community, a lot of people have been sort of getting more involved after the SOPA fight in January and things like that. But it was really great to see a positive, forward-thinking aspect of policy that was being taken on by this community and leaders within it. And I don't purport to be at the same level as Naval or Steve for sure, but it was great to see people from across the community really taking the lead on this one. And it was great to see the leadership of the White House as well helping push this bill through.
Well, in your opinion, is the Jobs Act what the economy needs to get back on the right track?
I think it's a great first step to getting the economy back on track, for sure. I think it was, we saw that with the bipartisan support in the House and Senate and ultimately as the leadership of President Obama on this bill getting it through. I think that it will help in many ways, but there's a lot more for us to do. And there's, other pieces out there like the Startup Act, for example, which is being championed by Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas and Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, as well as others, and some other pieces that we look forward to talking about in the campaign as well, about what we can do to really help the engine of economic growth in this country, which are these high-growth entrepreneurial startups, have a better impact and continue to spur on growth in the American economy. The Jobs Act was definitely a great place to start.
Now, the crowdfunding element, or the fact that startups can raise money from anyone, is the area that has gained the most attention, as you mentioned. So can you explain the significance of this a little further and what really it will do?
Sure. I mean, crowdfunding is, we've seen through platforms like Kickstarter or Indiegogo and some of the others that have sprung up recently across the internet, the ability for people who are creating products, say, to go out and say, or film or music album or whatever, and go out and say, this is what I want to do. I need this amount of money to do it. If you're willing to kick in, 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, depending on what it is, I can send you the product when it's done. Well, now when we look at how companies are being built, with the new developing app economy and things like that, you might not need, millions and millions of dollars at your seed stage, but you need a little bit to get off the ground and things like that. This allows you to democratize that effort a little bit, to really, in the truest sense of capitalism, to throw your product out there and say, this is my idea, this is what I want to build. If you believe in me, send me 5, 10, 15 bucks, and I'll in turn give you a piece of equity in the company as it grows, which it doesn't sound like a ton, but when your company grows to be the next Facebook or, Instagram or Twitter or what have you, like your initial investment there, and as you continue to grow with it, may actually in fact be lucrative. And I think it's worth being able to involve new investors in this way to get more people involved in how these companies grow and continue to change the economy. So crowdfunding in that way is a really great part of getting companies out of the garages, in that traditional sort of startup way and become companies even faster with greater growth potential.
Well, how do you think this will impact those that continue to raise funding in the traditional ways?
I think it'll only augment that and only enhance it. Obviously there's going to be companies that that we see every day here in our office at Hattery and in other venture firms all across Silicon Valley and beyond. They're still going to come out and be looking for money in the traditional way. Crowdfunding is not going to utterly change that system. All it's going to do is make it better for more people to get more ideas to the marketplace faster and be able to do that again by democratizing that seed stage capital in this way. And I think it'll also help connect the wider community to what's happening here in Silicon Valley and in other entrepreneurial communities around the country, because more people will be taking a look in the same way that you might invest in the stock market. Now you can look around at these emerging companies and say, wow, that seems really cool. I want to help them out a little bit and maybe get a little return on the back end. So I think all in all, I think it's good all the way around and will only help these communities continue to grow.
All right. Well, just as with anything, there have obviously been some concerns raised about the bill, including issues of fraud, investors being left in the dark, and failed IPOs. So what is your response to these negatives?
Well, there's no investment without risk. I mean, and anyone who tells you that is simply lying to you. But, I think in a lot of ways, people that are advocates of crowdfunding want this to succeed a lot, and be a really fruitful way for companies to grow and gain capital. So there's a way that we want to work around getting the bad actors out of the system if they were to even show up. And the other part of this is we're working with amounts of capital that are relatively small as investments go. I mean, you're capped at investing a certain percentage of your income up to, I believe, $10,000 a year by crowdfunding. And while that's, obviously that can be a make or break difference for a lot of people, if you are willing to invest the money, it should be money that you're willing to say, well, I thought that was a good idea, but it didn't work out the same way. Beyond all of that, if bad actors do enter the system and if fraud does start to proliferate through the crowdfunding system, there's going to be a movement afoot in Washington very quickly to make sure that any regulations that have to be changed or augmented in that way will happen very swiftly. And I think that mitigates a lot of the risk of this.
Well, you mentioned SOPA earlier, and some are saying that this bill was meant to appease the tech industry after the SOPA ordeal earlier this year. Do you agree with this at all?
I think that these two things are not totally related. I think that that's an oversimplification of the things that happened on January 18th in a lot of ways. I think what it does show is the commitment of the technological and tech community to become more involved in matters of policy, especially as regards issues that are germane to their businesses, which obviously Jobs Act certainly was for the startup community and for venture. I have to believe that the way that this was packaged was very opportunistic, surely, but also these were broadly bipartisan and popular bills on their own merits. And if the House Majority Leader, Eric Cantor, was able to read the tea leaves a little bit and see that this might be a good time to pass such a bill, that's great. But I have no, I don't see the connection between this and SOPA, to be perfectly honest. I think that was a totally different fight under different organizations. And while I'm happy the Jobs Act has become law and we're happy to see how it rolls out from here, I think that there's a lot more that can be done with issues germane to the startup community, like high-skill immigration, for example, or long-term STEM education, spectrum and broadband patent, all of these kind of issues, where there's a lot more movement to be done. This financial regulatory piece was a good first step, but in terms of appeasement, I don't know that I see that. It was good policy at the right time.
All right, and the SEC has a certain period of time to issue additional regulations to this if they wish to. Do you think that they will?
I'm hoping the SEC takes a good look at this and helps figure out what the best way forward is, and we'll be certainly watching that process as well to hopefully keep the interests that brought this bill to the fore and help it become law, to make sure that they're adequately represented in the regulatory process. But it's good to know that the SEC is out there and hopefully working towards a solution that benefits the most amount of companies, and we'll certainly be on the watch for that.
All right, we'll see what happens next. Thank you so much for talking with us, Michael. We appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Reporting for WebProNews, I'm Abby Johnson.